The wind howled through the dense woods surrounding the small town of Timber Creek, its eerie whispering sounds keeping everyone awake at night. It was the kind of place where shadows seemed to move on their own and where every rustle felt like a warning. For the teens in Timber Creek, it was a rite of passage to spend a night in the woods, but few dared to do it anymore. They called the woods cursed, haunted by a creature known only as the Rake. Megan, a daring girl with a taste for adventure, had gathered a group of her friends for what they all believed would be the most thrilling night of their lives. "Come on, it's just a stupid legend," she laughed, her eyes sparkling with challenge. The others, a mix of excitement and trepidation, bit their lips but followed her deep into the shadowy embrace of the trees. As dusk settled over the forest, the sun's last rays filtered through the branches, casting long, distorted shadows. The group reached a small clearing, and they hastily set up camp. There was a fire pit with dried leaves and twigs, and soon a crackling fire roared to life. They settled around it, roasting marshmallows, exchanging stories, and making each other jump with tales about the Rake. The Rake is said to appear when you least expect it, Jake, the most skeptical in the group, scoffed. "It's just a creepy story to scare kids into staying home. Look, as long as we stick together, we'll be fine." Yet, the crack in his bravado was evident, and Megan noticed his nervous fingers drumming against his knee. "Then let's test that theory. I'll take a walk into the woods, see if I can find this thing," she declared, unable to contain her daredevil spirit. The others exchanged wary glances but eventually nodded. What was the worst that could happen? Megan ventured a good distance into the darkness while her friends remained by the fire, trying not to think about the stories they'd just shared. Minutes turned to what felt like hours, and the laughter dwindled into uneasy silence. The glowing embers painted their faces in shades of red as they tried to shake off the worry growing like frost in their hearts. "Maybe we should go look for her," Sarah suggested, peering into the shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly. Before anyone could reply, a bone-chilling scream pierced the night. It echoed throughout the forest, wrapping around their hearts with icy tendrils. They shot up, fear sharpening their senses. "Megan!" they shouted, voices trembling. "It's just the wind," Jake insisted, but they all knew it was too human, too terrified to belong to the wind. They stumbled into the woods, hearts racing, following the direction of the sound. The trees loomed like dark guardians, their branches gnarled and twisted against the moonlight. The atmosphere grew thick with tension, and every snap of a twig underfoot was amplified in the stillness. "Where are you?" they called, their voices barely breaking through the suffocating silence. Then, they found it, a small clearing, and there lay Megan, pale and still, her wide eyes staring up at the sky. Jake rushed forward, his heart sinking into despair. "Megan? Oh God, no." He knelt beside her, desperately checking for a pulse, praying she was alive. Before they knew it, they were not alone. From the depths of the trees, a figure emerged, moving impossibly fluidly through the shadows. The Rake. Its skin was grotesquely pale, almost translucent, pulled taut over its emaciated frame. Long, crooked fingers reached out, nails like claws digging into the bark as it stalked closer. Fear seized the group, immobilizing them as the air grew thick with dread. It was as if their bodies were paralyzed by an invisible force, their minds screaming to run. "What do we do?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Just then, the Rake let out a low, guttural hiss, and its sunken eyes locked onto them, filled with a hunger they couldn't comprehend. Time ceased to exist as they stood there, gripped by horror. Finally, Jake snapped out of his stupor. "Run," he shouted. He grabbed Megan's limp body, hoisting her over his shoulder, and they sprinted away, leaving everything behind except each other. Behind them, the Rake was faster. Its breath, hot and rancid, could be felt as they broke through the trees into the safety of the clearing by the fire. Yet, as they reached the camp, they realized the fire had died to mere embers, the shadows closing in. With frantic hands, they piled wood against the fading flames, the sound of scratching at the edges of the clearing growing louder. Megan stirred, a soft groan escaping her lips. What happened? She blinked, confusion turning to horror as she saw the terror in her friend's eyes. Just then, the creature lunged toward them, manifesting the nightmarish legends in a breath of darkness. With a fierce roar, they threw whatever they could find, the smoke of desperation and fear engulfing them. As the rake nearly reached its prey, the flames exploded in a shower of sparks, driving the creature back. The teens screamed, their voices rising above the crackling fire, united in their primal instinct to survive. Then they fled, pulling Megan with them, running until the edges of the forest swallowed them whole. They stumbled onto the dirt road leading into Timber Creek, collapsing into the safety of streetlights illuminating the town. They had escaped, but they would never talk about the rake again. The woods remained, silent and brooding, but Timber Creek was forever changed, a haunting reminder that some legends breathe too closely to life, lurking just beyond the shadows, waiting for their next terrified victims.